many participants we have so far? My name is Efrosini Frango, and I am a member of the board of directors. I will have to just interrupt you just a second. Just give me a second, please. There is a technical problem on our behalf, and we'll be back right away. Sorry about that. Welcome back again. Now, my name is Frosini Frango, and I'm a member of the board of directors of the Pan-Hellenic Association of Translators. And I would like to thank you, to welcome you for coming, to thank you for coming, and to welcome you to our third in a series of 4 webinars dedicated to interpreting. So today's theme is about public service interpreting or community interpreting. And we have 3 people talking to us today about community interpreting and or public service interpreting. So before I give you the necessary introductions of our panelists, of our speakers, I would like to give you some information on how this is going to work, this webinar is going to work. The language, the working language will be English, and there is an interpretation into Greek for those of you who wish to listen to the whole thing in Greek. Now, for you to access the interpretation service, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, there is a globe. So click on the globe and then check Greek as your working language. This will direct you to the Greek booth where you can listen to our interpreters at work. So the first week of our series of webinars was dedicated to sign interpreting, sign language interpreting. The second was dedicated to conference interpreting, and the third one today is dedicated to community interpreting. During this evening, we'll reflect upon the current status and the future of court interpreting in Greece, the reality of community interpreting in our country, and the potential of both court and community interpreting. Most importantly, though, we're going to attempt to shed some light on the contribution public service interpreters have, on the contribution of public service interpreters in creating an environment which ensures the rights of non-native speakers and equal access to services, to basic services such as healthcare and justice and education. To better serve this purpose, we extended an invitation to academics and specialists with long experience in the subject matter. So our presentations today will start with Professor Stefanos Vlachopoulos. Stefanos Vlachopoulos is a professor of interlingual communication in multicultural settings at the Department of Foreign Language Translations and Interpreting of the Ionian University and the University of Ioannina. And he holds 2 bachelor degrees in translation and interpreting, as well as a doctorate degree awarded by the Department of Foreign Language Translation and Interpreting of the Ionian University. His research interests include the translation of specialized texts, interpreting, intercultural communication in professional settings, and lexicography. He has been head of various research projects and has established several monographs and numerous articles in international scientific journals, book chapters and conference presentations, lots of publications. So with no further ado, I'll give the floor to Stefanos Vlachopoulos, to Professor Stefanos Vlachopoulos, who will talk to us about his vision of court interpreting in Greece. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello to everyone. Hello to my fellow panelists, which is a privilege to be with you tonight. It's the first time I'm meeting Isabel. With Fortini, we have met several times. We have talked, we have exchanged views, and it's always a pleasure to meet her and to see her. So yes, Effie, thank you very much for your introduction. Yes, I'm going to share a vision with you. It's my vision. So with vision, it's always that thing that you run the danger of becoming too delusional. So I put some science before I present the fiction of this whole story. I will share now my PowerPoint with you. I'll try at least. It worked. No, that's not it. Sorry, there seems to be a problem with my PowerPoint. Give me a sec. I think I will manage to solve the problem.
While Stephanus is trying to figure out his technical problems, I would like to remind our members and those of you who are joining, that as far as court interpreting is concerned, the Pan-Hellenic Association of Translators had called upon the Greek Ministry of Justice as early as September 2016 to take steps to immediately improve the translation and interpreting services currently in place. Unfortunately, in Greece, as in other EU countries, the profession of court and healthcare interpreters is not sufficiently regulated. And this is something that you'll hear also from Stephanus, who have found his PPT presentation and is now sharing it with us. And I'll give you the floor right away. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
Thank you again for the floor. So yes, I'll go into presentation mode. Or if you don't mind, you can see also I leave it like that, so it's safer not to change anything. Some facts behind the fiction, some things behind the fiction. It's always peculiar to when we talk about court interpreting or public service interpreting in general. That's an issue, and is something that comes always up, that governments don't care about, and it's always peculiar because it's an issue where there are people in need and where there's so much at stake. And I believe that will be a thing that will keep us occupied, that will challenge us within the next years. So I think there will be work for all of us to get a working system, at least in Greece. In Greece, we do know that there is actually nothing in place. There's a little bit more in place in law, perhaps in asylum, than in the other areas of the public service. But I don't know. I'm very skeptical if I can say that it is at least satisfactory. No, I don't think it is. So for the people who I have not dealt with this issue, I will give you some facts before I go to my vision, to the fiction, to the science fiction. And this is one of the facts. This is one piece of science.
If I can just interrupt, can you please zoom in your presentation, because we're getting comments that people can't see the data and the numbers. If you can just press F5.
It's a little bit problem. Yeah, it's small.
Perfect.
It's small,
Thank
but I can make it available later on over your website if you want. So there's not a problem. These are the languages that are spoken in households in Greece. This particular piece of data is from a research program we conducted and I had the privilege of managing back in 2016 and 17, called SciGreece, Community Interpreting in Greece. Just to show you the image of the modern bubble in Greece today. This is the challenge. This is the challenge. This is another challenge. This doesn't have to do with court yet. This is a picture. This is a piece of data that shows us that how many, just to give you a taste of what is happening, of how many foreigners from the approximately 1,000 we asked back in 2016 had the opportunity to be accompanied by an interpreter or somebody at least to broker communication. I don't dare sometimes to call them interpreters because nobody actually knows who they are and help people and accompany people to public authorities, but at least they had somebody accompanying them. We see that 97% have not been accompanied when they access public services by somebody helping them communicate. This is from court. This is from an older project. And this data dates back from 2014. I don't think that much has changed from then. I would have hoped so. As you can see, this is a question this was a final question of a questionnaire. Are you overall satisfied with the interpreting in court? And you can see that 67% were not satisfied. And the rest, okay, very well, perfectly is a small percentage. So this just to get a taste of the situation. In Europe, there has been a roadmap. The EU Parliament decided to design a roadmap to strengthen the procedural rights of suspected or accused persons in criminal proceedings. That was adopted in 2009 and would be published as the Directive 2010/64. Among specialists, this is, I would say, the cornerstone of the roadmap towards a working system in all EU member countries. After this, of course, other directives were published. So there was one published on the right to information about rights and charges and to access the case file, the right of access to a lawyer and communication with third persons while deprived of liberty, strengthening of certain aspects of the presumption of innocence, procedural safeguards for children, and legal aid. All these directives touched the issue of interpreting in some way, but I do believe that the first two directives, 64/2010 and 13/2012, are actually the ones showing the way. So, by the way, this is the material I quoted from these sources. Is the material I quoted earlier. This material is available over the internet. The last one is a translation, is a summary, an English summary of the second project, which is only in Greek available. So let's move now on to fiction. Let's imagine we are 14 years ahead. We'll travel in time to the 17th of February 2035. It's still morning. It's not 7 o'clock in the afternoon like it's now here. It's the beginning of the day. We will meet public service interpreter SV2810. That's his code name for today's project. His profile: he was born in Greece by parents with migration background. His A languages are Greek and Pashto. His B languages, English and French. He is 20 years of age. He studied and was awarded a BA in interpreting with working languages English and French, and had an MA in multilingual communication. When he graduated from his MA, he had met the threshold requirements to register with the National PSI Register, the National Register for Public Service Interpreters, at level 4 or 5. By the way, my vision is accompanied by some facts on top of the slide, so that I can limit myself and keep myself a little bit restrained and don't let my imagination go wild. The scope of Directive 64/2010 was limited to criminal proceedings. In the meantime, also accredited interpreters and translators have to use for civil cases, for alternative dispute resolution, and of course, whenever there is a need for a mediated communication in prisons and other detention facilities. He has obtained a training in his mother tongue, which I remember his A languages were Greek and Pashto, alongside his university graduate, not a part of his academic training, but alongside, so to keep his second A language as high as possible. Before he could register as a PSI with the National Registry, he had to pass a self-awareness test, which is not excluding somebody, but it's a test to see for yourself and to talk to where you consult with an older peer and more experienced peer, if you are suitable and if you are fit for service. Can you work with people in distress? Close cooperation and common training with PSIs from other countries. Yes, he trains most very often with colleagues from other countries, and especially with colleagues from Cyprus, a country with whom we share a common A language. He enjoys very much training with the police and other legal and court professionals. They can exchange views. They get to know each other. They get to know they get to know which are the demands of each other's professions, and of course they learn to respect each other. From time to time, our SV 2810 trains in other public services. He joins his peers in hospitals, migration asylum authorities, in school, so that he can fill in whenever there is whenever he's not needed in any court, which is his specialty. And what he enjoys very much is he contributes to training of paraprofessionals or entry-level PSI at the first level of our national registry, which accepts people who have a command of languages that are not spoken widely and have no other credentials. He's very proud because he managed to get into the National Register for Accredited PSIs, which is managed by a state authority. And the authorities have to choose top-down. They don't have to go to the bottom level, to the less qualified now, despite the fact that the less qualified get paid less. But they are giving incentives to move up the ladder and to climb up the register into the top categories. He doesn't mind being evaluated regularly because he can show that he's good at his job. And he knows that this is something that everybody has to undergo. He believes that he is paired fairly. He is working on contract, but he is working also on the private market, since he is a fully fledged interpreter. And some even private stakeholders are using the National Register, since it's a very reliable instrument in selecting language services providers. He's paid on an hourly basis, but he's also paid for preparation at break time, and the maximum workload per day is regulated. He has an eye on a long-term contract for PSI, which would allow him to work both as an on-site interpreter, but also as a coordinator and somebody who helps managing the register. He feels safe. His details are secure. He has a different code per day per project. If he had a hard day, if he had to interpret something very violent case, he has counseling services at his disposal. It's always good to talk to somebody, because it's not easy to be an interpreter and keep all the secrets that you have to keep. He can relax in break time in the interpreter room, which has IT facilities, so he can prepare for the next assignment. And of course, there's a very good coffee machine. He knows that he's being recorded, but he doesn't mind. He knows that he's being evaluated by legal and police and court professionals, but again, he doesn't mind. He's good. He's assessed also by his peers. Okay, and when something went wrong, In conflict cases, he again doesn't mind, because everybody knows that an interpreter cannot be all the time perfect, and the case is evaluated by a team, by a joint committee of legal professionals and higher ranking interpreters to give the solution, so nobody feels that he's treated unfairly, not the interpreter, nor the people involved in the case that he dealt with. Again, he enjoys training other people, showing what it means to be an interpreter and what it means to work with an interpreter. He's training police and legal professionals. He contributed in the production of audiovisual material for all the other parties involved in the communication events that he has to handle. And he contributed to producing an evaluation sheet in which interpreters and translators evaluate the authorities. If the authorities allow them, provide them the free space and the facilities and to do the job properly. He knows how to use communication technology for remote consecutive and remote simultaneous interpreting. He can use terminology management too. He is experimental a little bit with simultaneous consecutive equipment, equipment. The hubs they use and that have been established all over the country in the courts are very pleasant to work in if he has to interpret for a place far away from the court, which is his normal place of work. He knows that his performance and the recording of the product of his work is kept separately on a second file, not in the case file. And he can also record, ask technical problems to be recorded, which might be of use if there's any problem later on in evaluating the case. Most importantly, he feels good because he has a position. He has a position in the courtroom. He has a position in the system. He doesn't feel like a ghost. He doesn't feel like an intruder. He is somebody who co-shapes the event. And this is what makes him happy. And therefore, our PSI SV 2810 is happy to be of service. Thank you. I hope I didn't run too delusional for your taste. I'll stop sharing, okay?
Yes, please. Stefan, this was extremely inspiring. Thank you very, very much, because you managed to bring the interpreter from total invisibility and lack of credibility to the visibility. This was wonderful, and make your vision is, I think, a vision that everybody here shares.
I hope I'm not too much of a dreamer.
No, you're not a dreamer. I think we all are dreamers here. That's why we're here. We gathered as dreamers, but we want to change things. But you managed to bring the interpreter, the court interpreter, where he or she deserves to be, and make him a contributor or a co-constructor of the administration of justice. And that's an extremely important thing to do. And on that note, I will. There are some comments that we will address. That we will address right away. We will address at the end. Excuse me, but we invite the participants to share their comments and questions in the Q&A box. I forgot to say it from